Hey everyone, welcome back to One Take Recording Weekly Vlog. My name's Enrique, and right now we are on week 4, featuring new Band-Aid. And in the last video, I talked about just my Facebook experience with being in a studio and doing some Facebook recording sessions, and some of the dangers slash funny characters that I've met along the way. So if you didn't check that out, go check it out. But today I wanted to continue that conversation about like recording, but on a little bit more of a serious note. And I wanted to talk about the prep that I do beforehand and kind of the mentality I have before anyone comes in to record, just so that I have a good session, they have a good session, and that both of our time is being used to the best that we can get it. So first thing I want to say is that whenever you are recording or getting to start recording, it can be a little nerve wracking, especially when you're working with a new artist. You know, there are a lot of expectations. You don't want them to feel like you are wasting their time or their money, and you want to make sure you're doing a good job. At least that's what I found with most people who are starting to record. And really, until you start recording, that fear is not going to go away. So it's really good just to start and go through all those hiccups, and just know that you're going to get past them. But besides that, there are some stuff to help you have like a better session and have people that want to return to you and have people that, recommend you to other artists, right? So I want to talk about some of those things and some things that I do, at least for myself, that I've found success with and haven't found success with. My first thing that I'd say is your energy and mentality is really the biggest thing, and you should always put that first. Recording can get a little tedious and can be a little bit long at times, especially if you're going with newer artists or people that have a lot to work on. And I found that throughout those sessions, sometimes I get tired, or maybe I'm just not there mentally in the day. But that stuff really like does reflect to the artist when they're coming in. And for them coming into the studio, they are putting themselves out there, right? When it's the first time that they're coming in, they might not feel fully comfortable. They might get a little nervous. Some of their takes might not be as good as if they were by themselves. And that's natural. So it's really important to have a mentality of letting people get comfortable and just trying to get them into that space as soon as possible, because they're not going to get their best works until they feel like they can be comfortable in the space that you're working with. So I've tried to do that in a couple ways. One, just my personality. I try to be very chill, very calm, and I'm never saying anything. Try not to say anything negative about like the song or the artist. If there's critiques that they're asking for, it's saying, yeah, this part's good, but maybe we could work on this, or I agree with you, but just kind of always trying to be like positive and keeping that tone positive. Now, the second thing that I like to do is something more before and after sessions, but I think it definitely does help. And that's just talk to the artist. Obviously, you don't want to waste your time. And if they're paying for an hour or 2 hours, 3 hours, you want to use that time for them. But sometimes artists like to come early, and sometimes they like to stay a little bit later. And if you have the time in those moments, it is so beneficial just to talk to them and tell them what you're going, working on, or tell them, who they might be able to work with, just because it helps them connect more on a deeper level. And a lot of people can tell when, you don't mind them being over for just a little bit longer. They can tell when, you're ready to just rush out and like get this done. As soon as the hour is done, like you're kicking them out. And just for them to be able to feel like they can ask you questions about stuff really does help. And there's a lot of times where I've had sessions, we'd end it and I just start talking about music stuff, because I love talking about it. I could go on all day about stuff that I find interesting. And we'll just sit and talk, 15, 20 minutes, even an hour sometimes. And, during those times I had the time, so I did not mind. It just gives you so many more opportunities to ask or get to know more about them, so that when they do come back, they know that you are somebody who, wants to work with them and wants to be a part of what they're doing, not just somebody who's looking to get money and, be on to the next session. That being said, you do not need to do this for every session or for any session if that's really not your jam. That's just something that I've liked to do because I feel like it does help kind of get people a little bit more comfortable when they're coming in and out. But definitely not something that's required. Second thing that I like to do is definitely going to be more on the space. Now, this isn't something that everyone can do just because every space is completely different. I don't know what your studio looks like. Maybe you don't even have a studio. Maybe you're going somewhere else, or maybe you're just starting to build it, and you don't have stuff set up. But I definitely like to set up my area in a way that fits the vibe that I like, just because I'm in here the most. And right now, the vibe is just something that's really cozy, kind of earth, green toned, very kind of dark tone, I guess. Dare I say classy? I don't know. But I keep pictures up and I have, these dark green painted walls. I like to have different like books up of just stuff that I like to read. I got a record player, just kind of keeping that kind of like classy vibe, I guess. Classy chill vibe. I don't know, like study room vibe. But for me, that's the type of thing and type of area that lets me work the best, like creatively. So that's something that, whoever comes around, I want them to also be able to, work creatively. And some artists might not like that. And some artists might. And really, that's just a time thing to figure out like who does and who doesn't. And the people that do, they'll continue to come here. And the people that don't, sucks for them. Just kidding. They'll find another place, right? But, that's a really big thing, just being able to have like a nice place, not necessarily like in the space, but just something that looks nice and is decorated and has thought put into it really does help so that people can get into the zone. So it doesn't have to be anything big like having like a couch or like fancy painted walls or like a super cool like lighting setup, right? In all these sessions, before we're recording and stuff, there is a lot of prep work, right? So covered mentality and kind of some of the stuff I do. Besides that, the before the scenes of a recording really helps you to have like a good session. So something that kind of goes on to the mentality is before a session, I like to have a little bit of time just to set up the area, get my tracks loaded up. If they have a demo, take a listen to it. Have a track set up for them and have my headphones set up, and it's not really anything big, but just having that little setup before helps me really get into the mindset that we're going to start recording and helps me know where everything's at, right? I've had sessions where I haven't had the time before, and during the whole thing, I'm trying to like mentally, catch up. And sometimes that can be really tough just because I'm not fully there or present as I should be. It's something small, it takes like 10, 15 minutes, but it really does make a big deal just so that you're more prepared for when they come in, right? And that kind of goes back just because I've had sessions where people would send stuff and they'd ask like, hey, have you listened to this? What do you think of it? And sometimes they'll be sending a lot of stuff and it can be tough to want to listen to everything at once until you start working on it. But by taking, that extra time, 20 minutes before taking a listen, it really helps. So when they get here, I'm prepared, to answer any questions they have and not be like, hey, let me take a listen to it again, And, sometimes on time, you might not be able to. But if you do, I highly recommend it just because, at least for me, being as organized as I can has definitely helped when other people are over, and especially when it's a newer artist. Now, I kind of mentioned having tracks set up and stuff like that. There are some other stuff, at least tool-wise, that I've set up that really helped me also, and something that you could implement as well. One of the biggest things that I did not realize when I started recording is the fact that artists like to bring other people over. And I've had a couple sessions where there'd be like 2-3 other people that aren't recording. They're just there to chill out and hang out, right? And the biggest problem that I've run into is headphones, not having enough headphones, right? So I'd have the headphones for me and the artist, but everyone else would just kind of sit there. And, that's fine. But sometimes, especially with some of the newer artists recording, they would be a little insecure. They'd be like, hey, what do you think? And their friends who were listening really couldn't give them input just because they did not hear anything. They just heard them like talking and like there's no sound from the song just because we have the headphones on. And sometimes that sounds a little silly, right? So one thing that just invested in, but we've used it for a couple sessions, is like a headphone splitter, and I'll show a better close up of it. But this pretty much just has four different outputs plus the input that you connect to your interface, and you can adjust it, right? So if people start bringing over their friends and stuff, we're able to have everyone in a headphone and they can hear, and they can even give advice of what they think. And it's definitely something that's not needed. There's tons of times where you'll just be sitting and just kind of like waiting for them to play it back through the speaker headphones. But I found it does make it a little bit more what's the word? I find that it makes it a little bit more enjoyable for the people just sitting, to be able to listen and be a part of it, which might not be much, but I think it's pretty cool. Besides that, the second thing that I have been trying to do, especially this year, is keep a notebook of just the stuff that we're going to get done, keeping a daily list, just because it's really important for me to visually see it. I think I got ADHD. I don't know. Maybe we'll see. But just being able to have that kind of as something for me to look at really helps, so that when we're talking about stuff or we're going from another session next week, or after a couple of days, I know where we're at and where we started, so we can just pick up from where we left off. Kind of bouncing off that, not on the physical side, but for every file that I have, I try to label the artist, I try to label the projects, keep them very organized instead of just throwing it into my DAW, having names for it. And I'm guilty of it because there are many times where my own songs, I'll just be like Untitled 1, Untitled 2. I have one that I put like I'm cold because when I wrote it, I was cold at the time, right? So I try to avoid that, and I'm getting better for myself as well. But like for any artist that's coming over, we try to do that just so that when we are looking for it, it's easy to find. Nothing is worse than not being able to find a folder when an artist is there. Just because it's awkward, you're like, hey, let me find it. You're searching around, they're waiting, it's whatever, right? So yeah, those are kind of my main tips for some of the stuff that I do before I have like a recording session. And then, lastly, I just want to say that not every session is going to be something that you do multiple times with an artist, right? And that's okay. That is totally okay. Obviously, like here, I want to be able to have, whoever comes in come multiple times. But sometimes it's just not a good fit. And I kind of talked about this before, but there are going to be artists, that might not just mesh up with you as well as you want them to. Or just some stuff goes wrong and it doesn't work out as well. The biggest thing is just to keep your head up and, learn from those mistakes, or just learn what kind of artist, is working with you better, or what kind of genres are working with you better. Learning your workflow, take those moments and grow from them, even if it's not something that you've done or a mistake that you had. It could be a perfect session and they just might not vibe with you, and that's okay. Or you might not vibe with the genre that they're doing, and then in the future you can be like, hey, I think I want to target more artists that do like indie, or I want to do more like rap, because every genre is really different. And even with the recording stuff, there are some, fundamental basics that you stick to, but there are things that you're going to do differently in the sessions. So just being able to figure that out and hone it in, even if the session isn't something you continue, it's really important to remember. Anyways, so that was kind of just a small rundown, I guess, of the things that I've liked to do in my sessions before we have like any recording, ways that I've been able to keep myself just mentally I guess fresh, so that whenever an artist comes in, I'm not going to be in like a irritated mood or a bad attitude. And so that when we're recording, we're using the time the best, right? If you're coming to record, you're paying money. So that's really my goal. I don't want you to waste your money. And I also don't want to waste my time and produce something that, I know isn't to the full extent of my abilities. I don't want to do something that's, not, yeah, not to the full extent of my abilities, because that's just a waste of time, right? And I think it's important when you are starting to record, one, know that there's gonna be mistakes. It's like an art. It's like making music. You're gonna not be the best at it at first, but over time you'll get better. You'll figure out stuff to do to get quicker, to make other people sound better. But it's important to keep doing it and just keeping your head up. Now that's gonna wrap up this week's vlog. So if you stuck through it, thank you so much. And yeah, next week I think we're gonna start talking about some other stuff. Obviously, what that other stuff is, I don't really know right now. I gotta figure it out. Right, it's a new week. Um, but yeah, if you're enjoying kind of like the recording tips and stuff, feel free to let me know. If there's any like questions you got, feel free to let me know. Um, like I said before, this channel is all about growing and stuff, and that's what I plan to do this year: grow here, and hopefully you guys can stick around for it too.